We're husband and wife and business partners who aren't afraid to live life on the edge.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Juliana.
From success and wellness to candid conversations on travel, food, and culture, we're here for it all.
All right, here we go. Jillian, welcome. So nice to see you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You are so welcome, and love this book. It Begins With You. Love it. Of course, it's great. I listened to the audio first. Then I've sifted through, the hard copy.
Wow, I'm impressed.
And now I've been listening to the audio a second time with my loving husband here.
Oh, yeah.
So
I am so impressed. Thank you.
Oh, it's been wonderful. And it's exciting that you're here today to solve all of our marital issues.
Exactly.
No, I'm just kidding. You're great.
You should have opened up with us laying on a couch, like head to toe. I'm like, all right, go for it. Here we are.
It's wonderful. So I'm just going to...
I'm so glad. Thank you.
A little intro so everybody listening knows that we are sitting and talking with Jillian Turecki, author of It Begins With You, host of the popular podcast Jillian on Love. And Jillian, you're a no BS voice when it comes to relationships and personal growth. So we're going to dive into love, healing, and what it really takes to break old patterns. Because as you said, that's where it starts. It begins with you.
Yes.
Great to have you here. So Ryan, you were telling me, and I didn't know this, that Jillian, you worked with Tony Robbins a lot before? Because I didn't even know that.
I studied with him and I've been to all his events, and one of his business people he's in partnership with has been my mentor for many, many years. And so, yes, and I did his training and all that.
Yeah, so it was kind of funny when I had learned that. I'm like, okay, so I can see that. I can see where sort of this no bullshit, you got to take care of yourself. You're responsible. You have agency over yourself and all that sort of, I could kind of connect those dots. So that was kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I don't really think of my advice as no bullshit, but I guess it is. But it's about just accountability, and not just accountability, but empowerment. That if we want to make a change in our lives, like truly no one is going to be standing in the way more than you.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that because no BS, but, and like I said, I listened to your audio. So there's even though it is direct in the no BS way, there's a very like a nurturing, empathetic tone.
I try
Totally.
because they're hard truths. Like I'm delivering things that are hard, that a lot of people don't talk about, and that are hard to digest. And so I figured the best way to do it is with love.
Yeah, and that's so perfect with your podcast name and everything, because that's really what it felt like. And I think if somebody is at the place where, you talk about many people that have come to see you, seeking help as your relationship coach. If they're in like a vulnerable state like that, people want to feel like they're in a safe space, as everybody says. And you really sound like someone that like I would trust to want to, share my like deepest, darkest truths with. And, I would be very open to your criticisms and your critiques and all of that. So I think anyone that sees you for advice is in a good shape.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, of course. And how did you get into this field, like in the relationship world itself? What made you know that that's what you wanted to do and where you wanted to be?
So I was a yoga teacher for many years, for almost 18 years. And so I was always very fascinated with the mind and the body connection. And I was also very fascinated by psychology and how moving our bodies can change our psychology. The study of the mind through the lens of yoga is something that I have been studying now for over 25 years. And that's what I was teaching. And I would work with a lot of couples and individuals, but I would just notice that when we release tension from our bodies and when we align ourselves physiologically, how we show up in our relationships changes. So I started to connect those dots, and I would say that a few years into teaching yoga, I felt like there was something that I wanted more, but I didn't know what that was. And I didn't know if it was, because back then there wasn't any people weren't on YouTube. There was no Instagram.
Right.
Instagram started, I don't know when Instagram started, but I got on Instagram in 2014. So I don't know what was happening before that. But it wasn't like you could further your career in teaching yoga through social media when I was teaching.
Right.
And so the glass ceiling was pretty low, and I felt like there was something more. And what ended up happening is I ended up meeting the man who would become my husband and then my ex-husband. And it was a very, very painful relationship. I would say the relationship leading up to marriage was about 90% good, really good, and 10% extremely problematic, like profoundly problematic. And then when we got married, the 90% became the 10%, and the 10% became the 90%.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I was doing, and it was extremely painful. And he ultimately ended the relationship in a very terrible way. It was by text. My mom was dying of lung cancer. I woke up that morning to a miscarriage, and he decided just not to come home. So it was I know everyone has that same response.
Yeah.
I know. No, it was 2014.
I don't know that you could write a worse way to do it.
Yeah. Well, it's the first few pages of my book, right? So you heard that or you read that. I had to figure out, I was just in shock that I was in this situation, and I had to figure out what makes a relationship work. It became my mission. And here we are.
Wow.
11 years later. Yeah.
Well, it's so kind of to piggyback that story. One of the things I know, Juliana, you and I have always sort of talked about in the past or spoken about in the past with friends of ours or family members, acquaintances or whatever. Sometimes you hear about relationships ending and you talk to them and it's like, okay, well, what was it? And, without getting into too many specifics, it's something, she did, or I couldn't get over this one thing. It's just like,
like isolating an incident.
Yeah. And it's like, that's it. Like you couldn't, and us like kind of like speaking together, like you couldn't work your way through that. You couldn't get.
Just to note, he's not talking about anything catastrophic that they did. I mean, like big picture, it was things that were like, oh, well, that doesn't seem like
maybe it was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Right.
And that's what
yes.
It was kind of the thing, like maybe they hang on to this one thing but ultimately, in my opinion, it always came down to just like, okay, so you gave up on the relationship and you didn't, for one reason or another, you decided I'm not going to even try and make this work. And I guess my question to you was sort of like, in your experience, like how much of it do you think, because especially with the whole idea of it begins with you, like, did you just not want to touch yourself as far as like you didn't want to get into trying to make adjustments of yourself or working through it? And, I don't know.
You're not asking Jillian.
No, not for you specifically. I guess no, like people in relationships in general. Do you find that a lot of the times people just sort of don't want to do the hard work to make it?
Yeah, a lot of people don't want to do the hard work. And then there are also a lot of people who are working so hard, but they're not doing the right things. And so they feel exhausted and they feel exasperated and they feel helpless and they feel hopeless. They don't know which path to take. And so it just feels easier to get out of the relationship.
Yeah. And I do know, because every relationship is going to have problems. There's no fairy tale. There's no fairy tale around here.
No, it does not exist anywhere. Anywhere.
Yeah. And I think what was one of the things I was either listening to or reading is sort of people in relationships having to learn how to fight or how to have arguments.
Yes, absolutely. I think that, repair is the most important thing. But learning how to listen to each other is incredibly important. And I think that a lot of people fight to win rather than fight to resolve.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
We know plenty of people that like to fight to win, don't we?
I don't.
Yeah, because our egos get involved and we're hurt and we feel uncertain and we feel out of control. And then we're like, if you could only hear what I'm trying to say. But everyone has their own perception of the same incident or the same circumstance.
Right.
No two people are looking at the same circumstance the same.
And you said something that I thought was really interesting. I'm not sure if it was in the book or maybe I heard an interview of yours, but you were saying that so people that typically have the most problems in relationship are pretending. So you were saying somewhere maybe they're pretending. And I wanted to clarify, like, what exactly you meant by that. Like, are they kind of living life pretending to be someone they're not or to be
I don't remember writing that. Can you find?
I think it was an interview, and
you're just making this up.
No, I'm totally not making it up.
I mean, I think when people are not really being who they are, when they're not speaking the truth,
okay.
If they're dating and they're not actually presenting themselves as they are, but they're trying to be someone who they think the other person would want them to be. Maybe it was that.
I think it was, and I think you were talking to Lewis when perhaps I've watched a lot of your interviews,
I appreciate
so I'm not sure which one, but that makes sense because I was going to ask you what you meant by pretending, and that's probably what it was, and that I'm sure that's the case.
I honestly don't know what contest you're speaking of.
Sure.
But all I can say is that people get into relationships or they're in relationships. And we all have a fear that we are not enough in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And not everyone has the fear the same way that the other person has the fear. It exists on the spectrum. And so everything that we do inside of a relationship that is inauthentic or dysfunctional or unhelpful or destructive, all of the above, everything we do is because we are in reaction unconsciously to our fear that we are not enough and that we are not going to be loved. And so that's really at the core, the essence of It Begins With You is that for you to change anything in your life or in specifically your love life, you have to understand that this fear that you are not enough, that you're not good enough, pretty enough, whatever enough, that fear is the driving force behind everything that is not working for you relationally.
Yeah.
Do you find that in like normal circumstances or whatever, that fear or that insecurity generally lies in more women versus men, or do you find it kind of,
it's universal, it's both, but it's not, but some people have real self-esteem issues and self-worth issues. And so therefore, it's going to be even stronger for them, and which means that they're going to have more trouble in relationships until they start to heal that part of themselves.
Yeah, and different for us now because we've been married for almost 14 years.
Well,
but we have some friends who are single, either divorced, or we have some that haven't yet found the person that they want to be with forever.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting and challenging when they come to us for friendly advice, and not because, you guys are married, what do you suggest? But just because, hey, you're my friends and that's what you talk about with your friends. You want, you seek help when you can.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just really...
People shouldn't come to me for relationship advice.
No, I mean, you're good. You've gotten this far. But
no, not because of my relationship. I think we're fine. I think, obviously any married couple, we have our ups and downs and everything. But I'm just saying, I give great advice when it comes to business and people we work with and everything. But like when we talk to friends and they ask my advice, like, oh, this is my, dating situation.
Yeah,
what do you think from
like,
a guy's perspective? I'm like, you don't want to ask me. This guy sounds like a fucking wimp. I don't he sounds like a scared little kid.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't ask me.
But it's good when they do. Actually, I love when you give, especially like our female friends advice, because I think it rings true and it's nice to hear the
male's perspective.
The male perspective.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But I'm just, hey, look, as far as in the spirit of not sugarcoating things, I'm right up there with the top of I don't sugarcoat anything when it comes to it because I don't first of all, what are you asking me for?
Yeah.
Second of all,
they're probably asking you for that kind of, for that advice. They
give
want
it to us.
Give it to us straight.
Yeah. And Jillian, this is an interesting one. So we had a friend recently. She's single. She's been married. She's got kids. She's divorced. So she's been dating. Now, again, I have to go way back when I go back to my dating days to try and just relate to her and give her my best opinions. But this is funny. She had dated someone who had said to her, she found him they were already dating. Then she saw he was on a dating app. So she brought it up to him. Hey, I caught you here. Not trying to be...
I didn't catch you. I noticed.
No, not caught you. But like, hey, I saw your picture. And not trying to be confrontational, but just trying to bring it up that she saw.
Yeah.
What he says to her is, oh, yes, I'm on this. Actually, I would encourage you to date other people too. They were like 3 weeks into it. But you have to know that my interpretation, I guess it's just like this Pollyanna naivete, but I was like, well, I was still trying to find the way that may not have been like, oh, he's not looking for anything serious with you, but like
he's not the one, period, end of story. Yeah,
and
just not.
And, so it was still like trying to weigh, doing the whole back and forth like I did in my 20s with my friends and trying to find like the glimmer of hope that maybe, but next week he might be more ready or the week after that. You just have to keep hanging out. Now it's funny.
You're not the advice.
And unicorns might be real.
Yeah. So you're the one who shouldn't be giving the advice.
Thank you.
Right, but
and so then a month later, after all said and done, and lo and behold, it didn't work out because he was nowhere near ready to be in a relationship. We're sitting down and Ryan's there. And our friend and I, we tell Ryan about what this guy said early on. And he's like, so you mean to tell me he told you he wants you to date other people? This still went on? And what left was there for you to interpret?
It's absolutely ridiculous. Not
because
only
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Because if a guy knows in 3 weeks if he wants you off the market.
Right.
I would say so.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, even if it took that long, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
a lot of people know even sooner. Yeah.
Yeah. The funny thing is people also asking relationship advice that are dating right now. It's like, I haven't dated since I was 24 and there was no Tinder or whatever the hell you're on
you're
right
so
now. Like
young.
I never went on a dating app. Like I never did that stuff. So people ask me like dating's different now than it was then.
Yeah.
But that was one of the things. That was one of the conversations we were having with our friend that night. We were sitting at a kitchen table, but I was getting up to date with all this stuff that went on. I was like, so not only did you see he was still on dating apps, but he encouraged you to also do that.
How old is she?
She is 37. But she's got 2 kids. So, she's not like she's in a rush where she needs to like have babies soon or anything like that. So it's really just trying to find the great perfect fit.
Yeah. That's not it.
No.
Not only was it not it, you're talking the guy was younger, he was a professional, no kids, never been married.
Just filed for divorce.
Or he was married but filing for divorce.
Yeah.
But it was like this guy's like he's out there to party. He's not looking to settle down. Yeah. And he told you that. And what did you think? Like you were gonna be this is not a Disney fairy tale, sweetheart. Come on.
No. Yeah. Absolutely.
And Jillian, I love in the book, you talk about these kinds of different scenarios, like the real red flags that clearly that should have been one. Or even just, you talk about now this whole situationship, which again, didn't have the name, I don't think, when we were dating, but it's really interesting. Yeah. And I think that you give some real great advice on when to walk away. And like I said, it's hard to know because Ryan and I, we dated, we were young, 20 something, but there was a period of time when he wasn't ready. And so we dated for a few months and then he, did the whole ghosting me thing and we had that. And anyway, there was a year in between, but I never, again, me being naive, Pollyanna, whatever, I never gave up hope. And I was just so obsessed and just hoping that, it would work out but I'm going to have his babies one day. And that was me. But here's the thing, I did.
I know.
Now when I'm asked for advice, I'm like, so what am I supposed to tell you?
That gives me a lot of context. So how old were you when you two met?
23?
22, 23.
Yeah. So, I think it's very hard when you're dealing with your prefrontal cortex is not even fully developed. Yeah. So I think a lot of things I would let slide when it's that young. It's like, I don't expect a boy that age, a young man that age to be ready. So I think but people are doing this in their 30s and 40s and 50s. And that's a completely different thing. So I understand that does give me some context. So how did it all work out between the two of you? What happened?
So far, so good.
Yeah. No, I know. But how did you find your way? How did you find your way to each other? I mean, of course, there's always these stories like this, but it's just not the norm. And you two were both very, very young.
Yes.
Yeah, we were very young. And I'll contribute to a little backstory here. So we sort of grew up, at least in high school. We had sort of the same group of friends and everything. We both went to separate schools and everything, but they were kind of like sister schools of each other.
We're in Rhode Island, if you don't know. So it's very tiny
It's small.
tiny state.
It's small. But we ended up sort of
now.
like the same circle of friends, but we never actually met each other in high school. We didn't actually meet until right after I graduated from college. And then it was the very quick name game. Like, oh yeah, we know all these same things. Oh, we were at like the same house parties in high school and stuff.
Yeah,
but we never
you guys
actually
were
met.
kids.
Yeah.
You're talking about high school. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So, but when we had met, we met like very glamorous story meeting at a bar. But I had just gotten out of a relationship where I actually just moved in with a girl. And I always say it was like this George Costanza going up the stairs, regretting every step on my way in as I was moving in my stuff to move in with this girl together. So it's just like, it was never going to like last. Like I regretted moving in as I was moving stuff in. So.
Yeah.
And then that went on for like a month. Like we lived together for like a month. And right when that was happening is like when we met. So it was like, okay, like, and when we met, it actually like things escalated pretty quickly. So it was kind of like, all right, I'm going to pump the brakes here.
But we met after you guys broke up.
Yeah, it was after we broke up, but it was like not that much time after.
Right.
And then Juliana was actually still going to school in New York. So she went back to school like after January break or whatever. And I was just kind of like, all right, I'm hitting the pause button here. Like, I need some time for Ryan.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, is that so bad? And then I did. And I did not do it the best way. You're right. I ghosted before ghosting was a thing. I did my thing. And I
like to say he had his eat, pray, love era. He found himself
you
in
love
that
saying
year.
that. She loves saying that. I call it my summer of Ryan. I had my summer of Ryan. I did my thing. But then like I came back around. And like when I came back around, it was like
been together ever since.
Yeah. So, and it had nothing to do with like her or like me not being happy with something that had to do with
No, you were young. You were young. You didn't know who you were.
Yeah.
It's young and complicated.
I think it was the right recipe, but I mean, take that small little blip out of it. It's still like I had my fun when I was young and I was in college and everything. And I was like definitely ready to like settle down, but not that first time that we had met and started dating. It was like, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to jump into like another hot and heavy relationship when I just
which
got
makes
out of
sense.
one.
Of course not, especially at that age. Absolutely not.
But sometimes when she tells a story, I sound like a fucking monster.
But Jillian, you're right. I mean, that really 22 versus 42 or whatever, the age difference.
Or
it's
even
a different
32.
animal.
The difference between 22 and 32 is vast.
Mm-hmm.
Vast. The difference between 22 and 28 is vast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, when we did get back together, it was like rapid fire. We got together and like a year and a half later, we bought a house together. Then a year later, we were married. And then it was kids. So it was like rapid fire.
But it would have been nice to have your book back then.
You have it now, though. So there you go.
And it's great. So now the majority of people that you see, you're still seeing people privately, clients, as far as
at the moment, I'm not. I work with people in a group I have a membership for women called The Conscious Woman.
Nice.
But I'm not right now. I have a wait list, so I'm not seeing anyone at the moment.
Okay. Even with your membership, do you see mostly—
I don't see individuals. I see I answer questions in a group and sort of do like group coaching. Yeah.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
And men, women, couples, all of the above?
No, it's called The Conscious Woman. So it's just for
Got
women. It's a membership just for women. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be reigniting my private practice anytime. But it's just at this moment, it's on pause.
Nice. And when you were seeing people privately, all walks of life, all different ages, different relationship statuses, all of the above?
All of the above. All of the above. Mm-hmm.
And so what do you think this day and age, what's going on as far as like divorce rates? I mean, we always grew up, we were talking about this the other day, just knowing that whole like 50% of marriages, that was the stat that really...
Yeah.
I thought all my friends were going to be divorced by the time we were 40. You know?
Yeah.
Well, knock on wood. But what is that looking like these days?
What contributes to it is we don't live in an age anymore where people need to be married.
Right.
Women don't need to be married and to be taken and to be looked after because women are, some cases, men still make more money than women. But women are starting to make just as much, and there's many of the younger generations where women are making a lot more money. And so marriage also used to be something that was joining families together. It was a different value system. And now things are much more about the individual, and maybe I don't need to get married, or I don't need to stay in this because I can support myself. And also it's the rise of romanticism, which is I need my partner to be everything for me, as opposed to, it's a double-edged sword. A lot of people who are very religious, let's say, their marriages tend to last longer because their value system is such that marriage is not, you don't marry for love, you marry for so many other things. And at the same time, I don't believe that anyone deserves an award for staying in a marriage where you're both totally miserable.
Of course.
Yeah. But it does beg the question of how much easier is it for us to become miserable in a marriage if we're expecting the other to be our everything?
Right.
As opposed to expecting our spouse and understanding what that means versus you have to be everything for me all the time. You have to be my soulmate. We put so much weight on these two words, soulmate, and what that means. And it's just too much pressure.
Yeah.
I agree.
I can see that.
I don't even believe in the whole soulmate thing.
Do you, Jillian?
Well, my answer was always no, but it was interesting because I recently interviewed David Gingham for my podcast. He's a Kabbalist, so he teaches things through the lens of Kabbalah. And through the lens of Kabbalah, your soulmate could be the person who you end up breaking up with. It's just someone who came into your life. It's a soul that came into your life that was meant to teach you a lesson, right?
Interesting.
So it depends on how you define it, but I think that what soulmates are generally thought of as the one, the person who's going to complete you, the person who, when you're together, you're not going to have any problems. I don't believe in that.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. And neither do I. How often is your soul, like the one and only person you're meant to be with, is from 2 miles down the street? You know what I mean? Like,
you never know.
It's just
exactly.
Well, there's like however billion people in the world. So, but you're one and only person that you're meant to be with.
Yes. And the thing is,
I'll remember that, Ryan.
Yeah. I don't think there's just one person for you. I think that love is a choice more than it is a feeling. You have to make the decision. You are the one. I've decided you are the one, meaning you are the one who I am going to really work hard to build and sustain a great relationship with. I choose you. Yeah. And so that's a huge change. It's a huge paradigm shift from what romanticism is, which is, no, you're the person who I don't have to choose to love you. I just feel so compelled to love you because you finish my sentences and you're perfect.
Yeah.
And you save me every day. And that bullshit. Speaking of bullshit.
Yeah, see, you do. You tell it like it is. I love it.
But I do, honestly, like a lot of really good relationships always have those great peaks. And then it's just, how do you handle the valleys, right?
As how you handle the valleys. And also, look, I don't believe that there's just this one person, and not everyone is right for you.
Right. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
I think that the majority of what makes a relationship work is selection.
Yeah.
And most of the time when relationships don't work out, it's because people didn't select well.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. Because sometimes I've always felt how many relationships that end poorly probably never should have gotten to the point they were at anyway. And they were kind of forced that way because maybe both people or one of the members of the relationship sort of forced it along or pretended to be somebody they might not be. And then that always is going to rear its ugly head no matter what. One way or another. Yeah.
Exactly. And people, it's a fine line between fighting for your relationship and fighting for a relationship that shouldn't be.
Right. And I always wonder, I mean, I think from a personal standpoint, I think we're very lucky because we work really well together in lots of different areas. And there's also like the attraction, the chemistry component, where do you find in general, and again, I'm talking about people maybe that are looking for a partner, how important do you find chemistry and attraction? Because to me, like even when I was younger, that was always so important.
I think it depends on the person, but I do think it's important, but it's also important to recognize that if you have that without anything else, what you have is a nightmare.
Yeah.
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 So that's what's really important is that you don't go for the person because you have chemistry. You go for the person with whom you have chemistry and. Yeah. It's never enough.
Right.
And you may be having chemistry with people who are terrible for you. And that's a pattern that you have to look at.
Yeah.
It's who you have chemistry with.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to have chemistry with good people, kind people who are good for you. And there are people who really struggle with being attracted to the right people. And they're always attracted to the wrong people.
Yeah. And in the spirit of it begins with you, I guess the number one thing is don't set yourself up for failure.
Yes.
By going after the same people that aren't right for you.
Yes. And so therefore you have to build a self-awareness to recognize what's happening and then go into a deeper dive into understanding why that's happening because there's a myriad of reasons. But yes, don't set yourself up for failure or don't continue to.
So I have to ask you, how often have you told or have you ever told someone like, yeah, you probably shouldn't be in this relationship?
Yes.
Or I'd imagine, are those like light bulb moments for those people?
Yeah, for sometimes it's a relief for them to hear it.
Because maybe they knew it all along.
They knew it all along. I have had to say it. It's not, more often than not, it's been like, hey, this could be the right relationship, but the two of you have to make some changes, or one of you has to make a lot of changes. But yeah, I've had to tell them that. Yeah. And, it's hard.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so for example, what I was thinking of when I asked you that question about, attraction, and there's the lust versus love, and
yes,
I think it's nice if you have both, but there are people,
but lust fades.
Right. Okay, so lust isn't just attraction.
Well, lust is more than attraction. It's the kind of I can't think about anything else but you in this moment. It's almost there's an obsessive quality to it.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like all encompassing, takes over.
It's all encompassing. It's very fun until it becomes not fun.
Right. And that's when in relationships, that's when I guess the work comes, you have to start working on it. And it's not just this new facade. But there are friends of mine.
Or the other parts of the relationship have to fill that void.
Yes. Good point.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert.
You sound pretty good, Ryan. I'll tell you. You do. You make great points. But friends that, for example, are like, okay, this guy's great on paper. He's so kind to me. He's got a great job. He's great with his kids, so family oriented, but I'm just not attracted to him. I mean,
very disappointing, isn't it?
Yeah. But
so there's a few reasons why that could be happening. You're just not, one is you're just not attracted to them. They're not it. They're just not it. One could be that maybe that person is so good on paper and so kind, but they're not actually coming to the conversation or to the dating as themselves. Maybe they're just being their energy is a little too pleasing. There's a very big difference between a good man and a nice guy. And the nice guy usually is just a pleaser and doesn't really have a lot of backbone. And, then if we're thinking very heteronormatively, the woman is then thinking, well, this guy could never protect me.
Right.
And then she ends up being a little bitchy to him. He just takes it. We don't like that. But another thing could be you're not attracted to the good person because you're attracted to jerks.
Trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then, that's a matter of, there's different things. It could be something from childhood. It could be a maturity thing. Like you have to see it could be a values thing about what's really important to you. But sometimes it's just not, there just isn't that kind of friction to create attraction. And I think that when that happens, it's important for the person to self-reflect and figure out what really was actually missing. Maybe they found the person not very intelligent. No, seriously.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Maybe it's like this good on paper. This is the person I should marry, but they're not very smart, and I'm very smart.
Mm-hmm.
This person could be thinking, and this person's not smart enough for me. I mean, this, these are the things.
Makes dinner conversations a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, or just like being able, you're not able to connect on a deeper level. Or the person isn't, great on paper and they're really kind, but they're a little boring. They don't have a lot of depth. Or it could just be you're just not right for each other, and you don't have to psychoanalyze it, but where you do have to self-examine is, I don't like this person, but I tend to like people who don't treat me well. That's where you have to roll up your sleeves and really get into some nitty-gritty work on yourself.
So now on to that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say somebody comes to that realization and they're like, okay, I need to work on myself.
Yeah.
What do you recommend? Do you recommend, okay, they step out of the dating pool temporarily? Or,
yes.
Okay,
yes.
So it's not just let's work on yourself while you're still out there, but take a break.
Well, it depends. There's no black or white answers here.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on the person. But sometimes it'll be like, let's take a time out and really look at what's going on here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Bad practice doesn't help performance in any walk of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I don't want to be too personal, but are you in a relationship or?
No, currently I'm not on purpose, because I just have wanted to focus on my work and not a relationship. And because, I spent most of my adult life, all I wanted was to be in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always in a relationship. And so I love the fact that it's not the number one priority for me all the time.
That's great.
And I think younger women need to appreciate their freedom more. Because I think women are so conditioned to have to be in a relationship. And they value the connection and the love so much, and they don't value their independence or their freedom enough. Yeah, that's the only reason why I'm not in one. If I believe when I really want it, it'll happen quickly.
Wow, that's such a great mental headspace to be in. And obviously now you have so much of your own advice that you can put to work.
Oh, I've been in lovely relationships since my marriage.
Yeah.
I've been in lovely. Every relationship I've been in since my marriage has been lovely and healthy. It's just not people who I've wanted to spend the rest of my life with.
Yeah. It must be nice to be able to make that distinction, and really believe it and
to have that choice, because a lot of people and a lot of women in general don't actually exercise their choice in the matter, because they just feel very desperate to be loved and be in a relationship and to be married. Yeah.
What is that? I mean, I remember I was young again.
Yeah, you were young. I think because women in general tend to value love and connection more than men overall.
Mm-hmm.
Overall. We also had been conditioned to believe that if we're not in a relationship, then maybe something is wrong with us. Everything is about our worth in whether or not we're in a relationship. Yeah, those are the reasons.
Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned earlier, or I don't know if it was today actually, or if I saw you in an interview say it, but something about even just, it might have been the book, movies. Growing up, idolizing these love stories.
Oh, the
I always
rom-coms.
reference these fairy tale Disney stories.
Yeah.
They really did a number.
Yeah. And so while I encourage being in a relationship, I think that for the women, because this is not all women, but for the women who really struggle to be alone and to find contentment with aloneness, and who see their value based on whether or not they're in a relationship, or they struggle to feel love in their life unless it's a partner loving them.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to encourage them to develop other parts of themselves and other parts of their lives so that they become choosers in the dating world and in the dating culture versus choose me. And that's not that men don't do this either, but I see it way more in women. Choose me, I want to be chosen and all of that, and I want to feel good enough. And women inherently need to be the choosers. Actually, we should be much choosier.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
You see that even, every girl wants to be asked to the dance, right?
Yes.
We watched Never Been Kissed the other day.
Oh,
with
did you?
Drew Barrymore, Josie Grossi.
Yeah.
Oh, my
there you go.
poor thing. But yes.
That was a horrific scene in that movie.
Heartbreaking. Yeah.
But really, I mean, that's to your point, like as far as conditioning from a young age, like even girls as young as, middle school or
for sure. It starts very, very young.
Wanting to be asked to dance.
Yeah.
And, having to be chosen.
Yes. And look, I'm never going to ask a guy out. Like I want to be pursued.
Yeah.
I want to be pursued, but just because you're pursuing me doesn't mean that I'm going to choose you. So you can be a chooser and in that and still be like, oh, I prefer that he is the aggressor in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And probably a bad choice of words. But
assertion.
It's about being the initiator.
Being courted. You want to be courted.
I think it really, but even in a marriage, it's very important. I once heard a rabbi say this, and I thought this was very profound, which was, I think that it's much more fluid in same-sex relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But in a marriage, so you can think of this as gender, the man or the woman, or the masculine or feminine. It's important for the man in a marriage to be the initiator, to be the giver, to start giving. Because what happens is that when you give to the feminine, we will quadruple the love that you give us. Because we are such nurturers and givers. But what happens in relationships is that women just give, and give. They don't fill their own cup and they don't have boundaries. And then they get into relationships with men or women who are selfish and lazy and not giving back when really the masculine has to be the initiator. Give and then see that you will just get so much more back from her, but keep giving. And so that's very important, I think. And because I've seen that and it actually works. People are much happier in their relationships when that happens. And so when we talk about courting, again, I think it's more fluid I've worked with a lot of same-sex couples. And so it's fluid and sometimes it's actually not as fluid depending on the people. But if you are someone who prefers to be courted, really what you're saying is that I'm here to give and receive, but you need to be the initiator. And it's very important.
Yeah, I can totally see that even in the same-sex marriages.
Yeah.
Or relationships, somebody has to be that person, right?
Yes.
Somebody, ultimately it's the yin and the yang, right? There has to be some sort of a counterpart to the other person.
Yeah.
And somebody to give some level of a feeling of security and protection too, I would assume.
Right. But that doesn't mean sexually that it always has to be the guy who initiates sex because, men struggle to feel enough too. And so women need to also get on the bandwagon and initiate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, love languages. Are you big on love languages or?
I like them insofar as I think they can be quite limiting, but I also think that here's the truth. Everyone receives and identifies love differently. So therefore there is a language to their love. But I don't think it's so rigid as this, and this. Okay. And I do think that touch is very important. And so if your love language is not touch, you need to learn that language of touch.
Interesting.
Because touch is very important. Non-sexual touch is very important. When you put a loving hand on your partner's shoulder or hand or back,
Ryan doesn't like to be touched too much. So.
I know you need to figure that out. It's very important. You need to practice it slowly. Yeah. Because touch,
it's so annoying.
Touch is it completely co-regulates the nervous system.
Yes. Well, you hear about that with babies and newborns and skin to skin.
A good hug.
Mm-hmm.
A good hug is incredibly co-regulating for two people.
Mm-hmm.
And we are
This is not what I wanted to hear.
I know. Sorry, buddy.
Thank you, Jillian.
I have to wrap up soon, just so you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That is good because
I'll work on that. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm very demonstrative and
yes.
I love you. I want to pet you.
Yes.
And Ryan, he's like, please don't touch my face. Please don't touch my face.
Uh-huh.
And I fear that our daughter, she's 12 now and a foot taller than me. I fear that she kind of has some of his okay. But I'm like, no, I love you. Get over here. So we're going to work on that.
Well, I think it's just talking about how you want to be touched, what feels right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe it's not the face, but maybe you respond really well to like a squeeze of the hand.
Okay.
Or, because also try combining the touch with some words, maybe some words of affirmation. So if you say like, I love you to each other, to your child, maybe you say, I love you at the same time that there's a hand on the shoulder. Because what happens is that when there's touch, when there's words happening at the same time, you anchor that moment into your nervous system. Mm-hmm. So it has a lot of, it's very effective.
Interesting. Yeah. And there's that whole mind-body connection again.
Yes. So I think it's just about having because everyone actually does like to be touched, but they may have different ways in which they like to be touched.
Noted.
Well,
Noted.
Thank you.
I'll have to work on that, I guess. And then maybe we can come back and we can recap on how that's going at some point.
Yes, that would be great.
That would be great. Yeah. Well, Jillian, thank you. This has been so interesting. Like I said, I love listening to you speak, whether it's your podcast or other interviews online. Where can everybody else find you?
Oh, that's so nice. So, you just have to know my first and last name, Jillian Turecki. And then you can go find my book on JillianTurecki.com, Jillian Turecki on Instagram and all social media channels, and then my podcast, which is Jillian on Love.
That's great.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great fun. Appreciate it.
So nice. Thank you. And
thanks, guys.
Love to see you in the city one of these days.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. Well,
thank
you so much.
Bye, guys.
Jillian. See you. Thanks again.
And that wraps up this episode of On the Edge with Ryan and Juliana.
Thank you so much for listening. And please be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform.
We'll see you next time.